Welcome to this edition of Security and Compliance Weekly. We have a very special show today as we welcome one of my contemporary peers, that is OG hacker, none other than John Lee, aka John Threat, aka JT, aka Corrupt, aka he's got another hacker handle he won't tell us. It's our job to figure it out. He's one of the original members of the Masters of Deception hacker group from New York City back in the day, and he's joining us today to talk to us about both how he got into hacking and how he later flipped it into a career, and we're going to learn all about it. In our second segment, we're excited to also add to the show Ron Reddings and Chris Cochran. They're from the Hacker Valley Studio podcast. They're also going to give us a more contemporary view of how to get into hacking and cybersecurity. And we're bringing together all of these views from the past and the present. We're really excited about it. So join us as we continue our journey of tearing down silos and building bridges on Security and Compliance Weekly.
This is a Security Weekly production. And now, it's the show that bridges the requirements of regulations, compliance, and privacy with those of security. Your trusted source for complying with various mandates, building effective programs, and current compliance news. It's time for Security and Compliance Weekly.
And welcome to episode 62 of Security and Compliance Weekly, recorded live on, what is today, February 23rd, 2021. We're almost through February already. I am joined today, virtually as usual, by my illustrious co-hosts, Mr. Scott Lyons and Mr. Frederick Flea Lee. Welcome, gentlemen.
Fun conversation today. Very fun. Very fun.
Hey, before we jump into it, because we're all chomping at the bit to get started, do have a few announcements. If you want to stay in the loop on all things Security Weekly related, you can go to securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe on your favorite podcast catcher or on our YouTube channel. You can also sign up for our mailing list. And of course, you can join us on the Discord server where things are already popping as I see the messages scrolling across the screen. Also, if you think back to last year and missed Security Weekly Unlocked, you can now access all of that content on demand. Doesn't matter whether you registered ahead of time or not, but you can get there by going to securityweekly.com/unlocked, and you click either the button to register or the button to log in if in fact you did previously register. Also note, in honor of Black History Month, all mentions of PCI will be toasted, at least on my end, by Uncle Nearest 1856 Premium Whiskey, made by a black-owned company. Interesting story. If you have a chance, go to unclenearest.com to look up that story. And speaking of Black History Month, I'd asked Flea a couple weeks ago if he wanted to have an episode where we focused a little bit on, the Black experience in cybersecurity. And I asked, we were chatting about it and throwing ideas around. So, was there anybody you'd think about wanting to interview? And without hesitation, he said, John Threat. So, I'm pretty much going to turn the microphone over to Flea now, and I might speak intermittently, but I want to give Flea the chance to introduce his mentor and childhood hero, as we're finding out, his idol. So, Flea, take it away.
Yeah. Thanks so much, and also thanks John Threat for actually agreeing to hop on the show today. For those of you that aren't familiar, Jeff actually did a great intro to give you just a little bit of a oversight of JT's history. Some of us actually knew him as Corrupt, especially those of us that are actually a little bit younger. Obviously, he's just had an illustrious history. I like the fact that his handle actually is John Threat, but also Media Threat, etc. And this is actually interesting because we actually literally get to have a threat actor on the show today. And somebody who's been instrumental both on the black hat side, but also on the white hat side. But even more interesting, I feel like JT is the embodiment of that hacker ethos, always, exploring, always trying to actually find new avenues, and always using intelligence and savviness to kind of actually break into areas, including into areas like the media. Like I think a lot of people aren't aware, JT, of all the media work that you've actually been doing now and all the activism that you actually have kept throughout your entire career. So I would love to actually just dive right into it with you, JT. And yeah, let's actually maybe start a little bit about how you actually got into security, got into hacking, whatever you actually want to call it. Yeah, just tell us a little bit about your beginnings, what it was like being a baby JT, baby Havoc, baby Corrupt, etc. So I'd love to actually hear just from you.
Gotcha. So I'm a hacker, first and foremost. Hi. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I break into computers. So originally, I started long ago. I got lucky, and there was like some computers at my mother's work, and I got to go in there and play with them unobstructed. There were no games or anything, so all it was to do was code. So eventually, I got my own computer, and I would just, would code and have fun with it as much as I could. But what happened was that when I first got a modem, admittedly, when I got online, I have to admit, I didn't really I felt like a little bit of rejection from the communities online. I logged in to Q-Link and I was like, yo, what's up? Anybody know what's up with these hip hop songs? And everybody was like, yo, get the fuck out of here. New Kids Rock. Like, I was like, oh man, New Kids on the Block. I felt, disenfranchised. But what's interesting is since then, hip hop has become America's music. So now you wouldn't feel rejected by mentioning hip hop. But back then it was no go. So what that put me in a place where like I wanted to like, not out of revenge, I just wanted to learn how to hack. I just found like this cooler area and I was inspired by, it was a dude, his handle, and he was like no good at hacking. But when I first started, it looked like everything. His name was the Great American Hacker. And I was just like, God damn, that's a fucking great name. So
was that Kevin Mitnick?
No, definitely not. And
you said he wasn't a good. Mitnick. You said he wasn't a good hacker. So
I didn't say that. I think the world said that. So all right. So anyway. But at any rate, let's see. So, I think that like from there, I started, started breaking into computers. And let me just tell you, if you've never done it before, and I'm pretty sure this doesn't drop in, the same effect maybe gives you a little bit of this, like the first time you might do a pen test, I'm sure. But like breaking into a computer that you didn't belong in is like fucking an orgasm. It's like fucking incredible. Hopefully I'm not influencing anybody to do anything wrong, but yo, that shit was fucking, and the dopamine hit was beyond belief. So I kept breaking into computers, and then I met the crew that, I was in several different hacking crews, everything from like 8-Legged Groove Machine to MOD. I don't think most people know that I was in 8-Legged Groove Machine for a while before MOD, which is like kind of like a pure systems hacking group. Not that MOD wasn't. And then MOD, I met, I was like on a system, I broke into it and one of the members was on there and like, I locked him out of the server and he was like, oh shit. And I think I said, my handle, I think I was going at Corrupt at the time. I hadn't transformed. And like, yeah, I locked him out and then he fucking got my number, right? And fucking called me. And when I called him back, the phone was fucking disconnected. And I was like, holy shit, this guy fucking put the fear of life into me. And I was like, you know what? I got to figure out how to do that. And eventually I joined the group and then, we did a lot of telco hacking phone systems. Which is why we could change phone numbers to do whatever we wanted to. Figured that out. And then, of course, I was like, you know what? Nobody can never have my phone number again. I mean, now it's okay. But back then, I vowed that no one would ever call me like that again. And it was pretty successful.
I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna have to build like an F-bomb tracker over here.
Hearing you actually talk about this, it immediately, like, it's obvious, just like the pride and just the fun and the enjoyment of the experience itself. And I'm kind of curious, like, what do you do with that energy now? Like, I totally hear you, but like, there's something different about, for lack of a better word, maybe being someplace that somebody else didn't want you to be, but you actually forced your way in. And I'm also kind of curious, like, how you translate that enthusiasm into some of the work you do now, and would love to even, like, talk a little bit about, like, that connection that you've drawn between hacking and hip hop, and just both those cultures and how they intertwine.
Right. Well, let's talk about, I'll start with the hacking and hip hop. So what I think is interesting is that the birth of hip hop pretty much lines up with hacking. In a lot of ways, hip hop initially was very much a very hacking DIY sort of movement, cobbling together turntables, using them in ways nobody thought about before, both for like mixing and scratching and transforming, and flipping verbal poetry on his head with just the tools that you have. It integrated technology. I remember the early DJs used to actually rip off the phone, public phone handles, the headset, and then tie the wires into the mixer. That's fucking great. But like I really thought that was great, and it's like a hacking, like hack light. But the track of hip hop and punk actually goes right along with the growth of hacking into its own subculture at that time. So, and up until now, where like hacking is like basically like the texture of everyday life. Every day, computers are broken into around the world. Even if you talk to your grandmother, she's like, Sonny, I hacked somebody on Facebook. Don't tell nobody. Like everybody is hacking. I don't care if they're a fucking chef or fucking bicycle repairman. Everyone's hacking. And that's great. I think that spirit is amazing, and we're going to need it as we move into the future where technology pretty much undergrids almost every part of our life, being able to, exploit it, repair it, push it to its limits. That's a great quality, including, the exploration of going where you don't dare go. You could even attribute hacking, breaking into computers. People might not like it, but almost like taboo, like Christopher Columbus into America. Not. I mean, I know that might be troublesome comparison, but in a lot of ways, still the exploration is something that is part of the human drive. Just as we're going to Mars, like I think in that regard, exploration is to quote Jurassic Park, it's like a penetrative act discovery. Great movie to reference for sure.
Dude, I love that. And one of the things like I love, JT, is that you're unapologetic about actually referring to yourself as a hacker, and unapologetic about owning being a black hat. And I would love to like hear more about your philosophy on what it means to actually be a hacker, and why you still like the moniker of black hat. And definitely also want to touch on that third rail about your opinion on quote unquote ethical hacking.
Right. Well, I am definitely a black hat hacker. I fucking break systems. That's what I fucking do. Like I even before there was a white hat, black hat thing, whoever came up with that silly thing, hats, Jesus Christ, man, it has nothing to do. Anyway, it's here. It has stuck. I'd love to see it go away. But the truth is that really the mythology is around the black hat hacker. Nobody actually likes a fucking annoying white hat hacker. I'm so fucking ethical, blah, blah, blah. Like it stinks. But also, more importantly, ethical hacking gets you bad security. At the end of the day, like the ideas for hacking come out of what they determine is black hat hacking. Now, I'm not saying there aren't some great researchers that never broke in. They're fucking excellent. But there's also the application of it, which is also a part of breaking in. You could be really good at finding a hole, but exploiting it properly across networks is actually a whole different, like, fucking mental space.
So Flea, can I jump in here real quick?
Yeah,
It's been defined in previous iterations of what hacking actually is. And I've heard it thrown around in the community that most hacks are 98% social engineering. Would you agree with that? Would you say no? Would you say that, whoever thinks that is not looking at this correctly? What are your thoughts?
That's a good question to debate. I mean, that has been raging since, before there was actually an industry, the idea of like, is social engineering hacking? Like we had a dude in our group that was like social engineering master. And yeah, that's a part of it for sure. I mean, I see the debate. I get it. I think that's why I draw the distinction about being like a systems hacker, because ultimately that's more what I do. I can social engineer with the best of them. I used to enjoy social engineering and stuff. I used to get away with it a lot. I mean, I've done everything from, one exploit I did. This is years ago. I couldn't get in this system. I guess this is social engineering. I hacked in, couldn't get root because the guy was on all the fucking time, man. This is in Germany. And so what I did was I pretended to be like one of the employees there. Like, damn, this is gonna get me canceled. I pretended to be one of the women employees there and flirted with him through the account. And he gave me root. I just want to try a little root. So he gave me the root password and I patched the system. I did what I had to do. I wanted to see what was on there. I feel bad about it now. Hopefully they got together and got married.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
All right. So just to finish the story, I'll be honest with you. I brought him to completion. I mean, I definitely, there's a little cyber sex going on to get that.
Oh, wow.
It's a dark, dirty days, man. It's a dark,
it's
dirty
funny.
days.
If I can interject real quick, I have never called myself I don't think I've ever called myself a white hat hacker, but I was doing hacking professionally, I guess, while you were doing your thing, and we can talk about that later. But I can remember even in the office that I was in, which we called the pit, we would develop an attack strategy in the small group of guys, at least in the very beginnings. The research would be done, and we'd be like, okay, we're pretty sure if we push the button, pull the trigger, this will work. Oh, but we can't do it because we got to follow the rules. I was like, I'll push it. So I was the guy that was like, yeah, I'll push the button. Nice. Which is what got me my hacker handle, which we haven't shared yet. That's a challenge. Find out, I think it's already been mentioned on the air, what JT's other hacker handle is and what my hacker handle is. Hey, real quickly, our show is about security and compliance, and I lived for a lot of years in the hacker world, and then I went over to sort of the compliance, more white, maybe vanilla side of the industry, in compliance and audit.
Honestly though, Jeff, I got to interrupt you. Honestly, it all comes down to who pays you, whether you're a black hat, gray hat, or white hat. Who's paying the bill?
Fair enough. But we have a question that we ask all of our guests, and there's no good way to fit it in, so I'm just going to throw it out there. We talk about there's being two different silos, two different worlds, the security side of things, the hacker side of things, and then the other side, which maybe that's a black and white thing, the way you're describing black hat, white hat. But the question we ask everybody, JT, is, where do you fall on this whole notion of security versus compliance, what we call the security versus compliance continuum? No right or wrong answers, just what's your take?
Right. So, all right. So for me personally, I do feel like compliance drives most of security these days. And I don't think that's the way to go about it. I mean, I think the way I would describe it, I think, first of all, I see some huge problems in terms of security. Now, in terms of like on the attack side of things, in terms of a nation state, like USA is fucking phenomenal, right? That's not in question. That's also backed up with, additional layers of help that I won't describe here. But like in terms of security and defense, not so good, because in general, to manage so many computers and so many people, everything is sort of fell to like what I kind of right now I'm calling like checklist security. like there's these checklists that people go over and they swear they got these PDFs, they've got these checklists, they swear it's good. If you kick the tires on these checklists, it's like somebody wrote this shit like about 5 fucking years ago. It's not even relevant to like today's attacks. I think in general, it's done a disservice because on the other side, hackers stay fluid. They constantly are trying to figure out new ways to figure out how to penetrate, how to stay hidden, how to execute, how to fucking, make pieces that are big, have network effects and distract. You need people on the security side who think that way too. And you can't really do that, to me, with the sort of structured thinking that's happened. Like I said, a lot of people make a lot of money, resting on these checklists. And then the company gets overrun so easily. And they're like, well, I mean, but we had the checklist though. But the checklist is outdated and has been outdated. What I like to see is definitely more of the idea of thinking like a hacker. And to me, that's where sort of the ethical thing falls out, right? Because you sort of like get so entranced with like this like identity of being in the checklist world and can't do anything wrong. And how are you gonna imagine new possibilities like that? I think it constricts people heavily from being really amazing, transforming into really amazing security and security practices that would ultimately be for the best interest of everybody.
So let me follow up on that real quick, and if this is a little bit inflammatory, it might be intentional. Having lived in both worlds, I get what you're saying about the creativity and understanding, how hacking works and what the mind of a hacker is like. Because when I was in the early days of me being on the compliance side, and I was in PCI from the very beginning.
Ding.
One of the big things that I missed when I was on the PCI side of the world was talking to clueful people, talking to hackers, and talking to people that got it, just understood, what we're trying to do, this systematically secure things, following checklists, frameworks, or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but you're missing the point that you can run circles around this kind of stuff. So I get that part, but I also believe that breaking things is easy. Building things that can't be broken into, hard. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's almost impossible. But also, and that's where, like I said, that's where the fluidity comes in, and people being able to be malleable and think like a hacker and have those discussions. Like the rigidity is what allows people to penetrate. I do get what you're saying, but ultimately, like I said, when you kick back and relax on those kind of structures, and like I said, I understand this. How do you, like I said, administrate like a huge company with a lot of computers and devices? It's almost impossible. But I do think there are ways around that. Like I'll give you like a far throw one. That's something I'm actually working on personally. Like with some organizations, is definitely, I feel like computer literacy in general is really poor. We get access to powerful devices and expect to take a job in secure environments. And a lot of people have no idea how to manage their own personal security, even as, the ability for like even simple things like OSN. Like the average citizen is getting really good at tracking people down and monitoring them on social media and figuring out their personal data. I think the challenge has risen, but actually you don't actually learn, like if you're not targeted toward a security field or you were hacking on your own as a kid and interested in the stuff, then you might find yourself in a secure environment in charge of a lot of important data, and you have no idea how to secure it. Nobody's ever talked to you about anything from your personal, OPSEC to, computer security practices. I mean, at this point, it's almost a shame that these things aren't talked about in high school or even preschool, grade school, just a general discussion about your own personal data security. And that leads, of course, into like workplace security.
Hey, JT.
Yeah.
I hate to interrupt you. I want to take a quick break. This has been a great conversation so far. We've got a few other guests we need to bring in, so we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.